called I Still Don't Get It. You're going to understand in just a moment. I'm going to start with Nathan. Nathan, could you explain in just about 15 seconds the topic of asset management?
Sure. Asset management is the idea that before you can manage and secure stuff, you have to understand what stuff you have, where it is, what's on it, who has access, and you need to know what you have all the time. And wait, it just changed? It just changed again? It just changed again.
I still don't get it. All right, I'm sorry. Pat, help me out here. Explain asset management to me, but now in half that time.
Yeah, so it's really not about what you have. It's about what you don't know that you have. And so it's finding out what's out there that you don't know that you have.
Yeah, I still don't get it. I'm sorry. Nathan, help me out here. Can you explain asset management, but in the most condescending way possible?
My God, David, how do you not understand that you need to know what you have all the time? It's really that simple.
I still don't get it. All right, Pat, help me out here. Could you explain asset management again, but as if you were giving this explanation to a class of graduating seniors?
So yeah, we are happy that everybody's here today. You've got a bright future ahead of you. But if you don't know what you have with you to take through that future, then you'll never make it. So everybody take collection of what you have, make sure you understand it, and go be successful.
I'm sorry. I'm really struggling here. I still don't get it. Nathan, I'm going to have you give you the very last explanation. Could you explain asset management as a QVC commercial?
All right. Right now, only 30 seconds left. You can get it on FlexPay. We're going to allow you to connect to all of the different tools you have, all the different data sources, and you can know every second exactly what devices you have, all the cloud instances you have. Call in now. We have operators standing by.
Welcome, everybody. The CISO series video chat is ready to begin.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. That was our new open. I still don't get it. Hope you liked it. We're open to any decision or any comments you made. I think I need sound effects in that. That's what it's lacking. I need sound effects. Anyways, today's topic is hacking asset management. An hour of critical thinking about figuring out what you have at all times. Our guest today, who you just saw, is Pat Benoit, who's the VP Global Cyber GRC BISO at CBRE, and also Nathan Burke, who's the CMO over at Axonius. Axonius, guess what? They're the sponsor of today's very video chat. Thank you so much, Axonius, for sponsoring us. They were, by the way, one of the early sponsors of the CISO series, and Nathan knows this, that we take credit for all their success because it was shortly after they sponsored us that things started to explode for Axonius. So, Nathan, yes, we get to take all credit for your success.
Causation, correlation doesn't really matter to me. Let's do it.
All right. I'm good with that. All right. 7 different ways to participate here. The chat room, which many of you have already discovered. And also, we want you to submit your worst idea for improving asset management. How are you going to improve it? What is the worst way to improve asset management? And then on the flip side, we want to know how you can make asset management 10% better. You can vote in the polls. You can join us on video with Bring Me On. Just type it in, and Andrew will try to bring on as many of you as possible at any time. Ask a question. You'll see there's a little button at the bottom of the screen to ask a question at any time. And also, you can vote for your favorite question, too. So please get those questions in now. All right. Today's schedule. You just saw it. I still don't get it. Worst idea for improving asset management, just label it bad idea, and then how do we make it 10% better? Just label it 10% so we know. Angel will put those into the polls. Then we'll put our poll live at 20 minutes past the hour for the worst idea for, quote, improving asset management. Then we will play I Object, which actually I should say no longer is a new game. Dwayne, who was our winner of the best bad idea last week. Dwayne, make sure you're there. Pipe up if you haven't yet. He will join us for the I Object game. And we do, besides not only the first being a new game, we do truly have a new game, Shoutburst, which, by the way, the audience will compete against our 2 guests. I'll explain that at 30 minutes past the hour. So we're not going to be doing Department of Yes on today's show. But we will have the 2 worst ideas, essentially the ones that are voted up the most. If there's a tie, I'll decide. Those contenders will come on and will face each other in the worst idea contender face-off. But before that, poll live will go for 10% better. And then last questions and final advice, and then we will have our meetup. If you've never joined our meetup, please come. It's a lot of fun. Great chance to network with other cyber professionals. And let me also, last thing mention is the link at the very bottom of the screen. There's a big sort of rectangle there. It's aqua. That is the link to register for next Friday's video chat, which is going to be hacking productivity, an hour of critical thinking about how security can actually improve business operations, make it more productive, which I know often security is not seen as doing that at all. So you will want to come to that. So I hope you can all click on that link there. All right, now let's jump into our conversation here about asset management. Please, everybody, get your questions in, your bad ideas, your 10% as well. My first question for you, Nathan, and also Pat, I want you to answer as well, but I'm going to throw to Nathan first. Okay, we all know that physical and digital assets are the first thing you should do when building a security program. It's right there in the CIS controls. But it is often skipped. Like, here's the thing. What I find so bizarre is this is such a critical thing at the beginning, yet this category of asset management, I'm going to say, I don't know, what is it, maybe 6 years old, this category? I'm going to kind of guess about that. So what is preventing people from knowing their assets, and why is this category so darn new? Nathan?
Yeah, so I think it's a single word, and that word is complexity, right? So I always say this, where if you went back like 20 years ago and you had Windows machines on a physical network, everything's in AD, it was relatively easy. But right now, and in 5 years from now, things change so fast, and you have so many different systems, different types of devices, different software that manages each of the types of devices. So you have management systems, security solutions, and they're all knowing a piece of the puzzle, but it's just such a fragmented and complex computing environment that it moves so fast. And the only thing that you can depend on is that it's already changed since I started talking.
All right. What about you, Pat? And Pat, you've probably been in a bunch of organizations where this is a struggle. What have you seen? Why do they struggle with this?
I think it's easier to say that I've been in a lot of organizations and it's always a struggle. I mean, it always is. And let's look at it this way. It ain't sexy. And so nobody's chasing after, I want to go count the assets. The closest I got was at one company, I had a person who was dedicated to me to do asset management. They were trained as an asset manager. And so that made a huge difference. But where we miss a lot is we also then stop at the electronic and digital assets and forget that we also have, and certainly software is an electronic or digital asset, but we forget about software because it's not as touchy-feely. And we forget about data, specifically classified data, and how we track that as an asset too.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned not sexy. That used to be Axonius's tagline, dealing with the least sexy part of security. So they are very, very well aware of that as well. Please, everyone, get your questions in about asset management. Whoops, here, my questions just disappeared. Okay, so let's start with, and I'll start with you, Pat, on this one. Let's start with the easy to the hard, and just start with, this is the world's easiest thing to find when you're searching for assets, and give me a couple examples of the toughest things to find.
Well, and the easiest thing to find is something that's connected to your network that you can do discovery on. I mean, it just tells you what it is. There are plenty of tools out there that'll help you do that. The hardest things to find are those things that are bought outside the centralized procurement process, that are bought by somebody with their P card or corporate credit card, and they just thought, oh, I need this, and then they go plug it. They plug in their coffee automated smart coffee pot, and they plug it into the network, and then all of a sudden, we've got a device, we have no idea what it is, and usually because we don't know what it is, we ignore it in a lot of cases.
Oh, so Nathan, let me throw that to you. Like, how many things have been seen yet ignored?
Yeah, a lot. And so I think it's the seen and ignored, but also, like Pat was saying, the things that aren't connected to our network, things like ephemeral devices, like assets in the cloud with a dynamic IP address that none of our scanners know where to look for, right? So it's things that aren't like they're not there for a malicious reason. They're there for a reason that's just outside central control, and therefore the tools that we have don't know to look for them.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I want to ask something specific about Axonius and how you built your company to try to find that. How do you find something that's dynamic like that, that's constantly moving and so ephemeral, like literally appears, disappears on a constant basis?
Yeah, the whole idea is that we want to just connect with every solution out there, every data source that knows about assets. So, all of the network scanners, all the networking gear, but also all of the cloud infrastructure. So I think we have like 400 adapters, which are just API connections to all of the different tools that know about them. So we'll connect to the AWS console and we'll say, well, wait a second, we see an AWS instance, and then we look at your VA scanner, and we say, VA scanner doesn't know anything about this, add it to the next scheduled scan. So the idea is just tap into all of the different sources that know about all of these assets, and then bring it all together.
Are there things, Pat, like you were saying, earlier on that there's also, other assets that aren't the obvious digital ones. Are there physical assets that you need to worry about that obviously will have some kind of connection to you? And then, there's also just the assets of information that, and I don't know if this sort of falls under the window of Axonius as well, but, hey, I didn't know that someone had this kind of password information that was just sitting on their desk, kind of a thing. Like, hey, we need to know that. Like, so explain to me that category, if you will.
So, and I would add to what Nathan had said too, that I think it's a good idea from a practice point of view that if you have a lot of ephemeral devices, make that a category of devices so that when you're looking at all the other categories, they're pretty clean. And you can then focus on this category of ephemeral devices. So you group them together that way. As far as the other data, data now is the lifeblood of every company. I have yet to find anybody that can tell me a company that that has technology that you can take away their data and they'll survive. It's not feasible. So in doing that, knowing where that data is and knowing how it moves and who owns it, and the data even has a greater ephemeral nature than the physical assets connecting to the network. So that's a big challenge, is doing all that data. We call it data risk governance. We add the risk in there because data governance is a bogus term that everybody throws out there but doesn't really tell you anything. So we say data risk governance or data quality governance or whatever the case is. Data is the lifeblood and we have to protect it. Where we lose sight of a lot of that is with a lot of the new devices, censoring devices that know that somebody is sitting in a seat so that you can make a reservation to that seat or not. Those kinds of devices are pretty static, but they also don't tell you a lot of information when you connect to them.
David, just one thing, because it's about to scroll off the screen, but Chris Pattison in the chat just said OT, right? And so IoT is another, it's really hard because if you look at an IoT device, it's probably just something that's a Linux device. It's something that you can't have an agent on. So you can't have something installed on it. So looking at it from the network perspective, it just looks like there's some Linux device. We don't know what it is. So being able to understand what those IoT devices are, what they're there for, their purpose, and what's the security standpoint of those things, that's also very difficult unless you're able to really fingerprint what that is.
Yeah, network traffic analysis. Now you have to look at the traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this question to Curtis Harrell, and I don't want to ask the two of you if you see this question as falling under the asset management umbrella, because often when we talk about asset management, we're talking about the digital connections, the ability to send information, but what about that actual information itself? Does that fall under the asset management category? Curtis asks, what about intangible or difficult to poll / discover / query assets such as support contracts, licenses, etc.? I would hope that companies would know where that kind of information is in their own databases. But Nathan, do you consider that falling under the asset management umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's an important distinction to make here is that when we started out, we were trying to figure out what to call what we're doing, right? Because you have IT asset management of just understanding, like, give me the life cycle of all of my devices and the software on them. And we came up with this idea of cybersecurity asset management. It's not a great category name, I admit. That's my fault. But what we're saying is we want to understand both all of the devices and how they relate to your security posture. So, vulnerability management is a great use case. Show me everything that has a CVE with a severity of XYZ. We certainly do look at the software installed because we're looking at that from a security perspective too, because we can look at things like vulnerabilities, look at things like software that shouldn't be allowed, right? Like show me Bitcoin miners or that sort of thing. So we definitely look at the software. We're not really, I mean, there are some use cases around like software license management, sure. But really what we do specifically at Axonius is more around the security, IT, and infrastructure use cases around if you know all of the assets you have, how do they relate to your policies? How do they relate to your security posture?
That makes sense. And Pat, is that the way you see it as well?
Yeah, I do, and I think the threshold question or the test question for me is there value to the asset or not? I think the concept of durable versus expendable can come into play here too, because certainly durable things that are going to have a long life, you want to track as an asset. When you talk in terms of ephemeral, sometimes you might be talking about things that are expendable. And so do you really want to track an asset that's going to go away in 24 hours, as an example, for good? So you have that, and then you have the idea of value. Contracts, good example. Having that piece of paper contract or the electronic device, the electronic document contract, there is value to it but the value may only come if you get into litigation and you need that contract to have that discussion. So then you get into a risk reward discussion. Is the value against the risk worth taking time to track it as a durable asset? And those are all things you have to do up front. And that's the part we often miss with asset management is we jump right to how do we scan and find this stuff? And we forget about what are we trying to find? How, label it, categorize it, classify it so we know what we're looking for.
All right. Let me just mention a couple of things. We are how many minutes away? We are just about 2 minutes away from the poll going up. So if you haven't gotten your bad idea in, which, by the way, I think we're over 50. Are we over 50 bad ideas already? I mean, they're coming in fast and furious. I'd be interested to know how many of these bad ideas you've actually implemented. Both of you, actually, hopefully. But hopefully you'll consider some of them yourselves. But what we will... I also want to remind you to please click and register for the video chat next week. Productivity is going to be a super fun discussion as well. All right. Let me get to, question came in from Matthew Bybee, who is a CISO over at Satcom Direct. And he asks, is traditional asset management an antiquated concept? Shouldn't it be more about the asset of data? This is what we talked about, what it is, where it is, does it have value? So that is not your bailiwick, Nathan. What do you see as tracking the data versus tracking the devices? And you're like, well, my feeling is they both have value here. You shouldn't do one without the other. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the other point too is where does the data live, right? And so if the data lives on a device and that device is vulnerable, then you've got to deal with that too, right? And so I think you've got to do both. Data doesn't live on its own, and then same thing with devices. So to me, it's the two sides of the same coin.
Right, and Pat, I got to assume that you have programs that are trying to deal with both.
Sure.
You try to data protection, data management, and also asset management.
Well, it's, balance in all things. It's the imbalance of concepts or processes that get you in trouble all the time. But I think you can look at it from 2 points of view. You can go. And this relates to how we've done security in the past. We always had a perimeter-centric security view. Now we have hopefully you have a data-centric security view. And I think that's the same thing with asset management. You can view it from endpoint in, meaning you're just trying to keep track of all the things that touch your network. And that's one view, or you can view it from data out, which is my data is here and it transitions from place to place to place. So then you have to ask yourself a question. If there's no vulnerability on an endpoint and my data never touches it, is it really a vulnerability? And even if there is a vulnerability, is it really a vulnerability if the data never goes there and there's no other way to come into the network? So I think you have two views you can take.
All right, we have Dwayne on, and we are ready to play our next game, which is I Object. For those of you who've joined us the last few weeks, we've been playing this for, I think, about 3 weeks so far. And this is how the game works. The topic is how to build an asset management program. I will let you, Nathan, start in this very discussion about how to build an asset management program. At any time, either Pat or Dwayne, who is our winner of the best bad idea from last week, can object to what Nathan says. I will then say, what's your objection? They state their objection. You have to wait till I say sustained or overruled. If sustained, you get the microphone. If overruled, the microphone stays with the person who is speaking. In the very beginning case, it would be Nathan. The whole point, though, is you want to have the microphone at the end of 1 minute of conversing. But keep in mind that the time stops when you object, and it starts back up whether I say sustained or overruled. I don't know the time. None of you know the time. The only one who does is Andrew, who's manning the stopwatch back there. Do you all understand how the game's played? Yes?
Yep.
We
Yes.
all understand. Hopefully the
Mostly.
audience does as well.
It's all right.
Nate, and by the way, and I stress this again, do not be polite at all. Nathan, you are arguing how to build a best asset management program. Go.
All right, you start with understanding all of the different systems that know about assets and understanding exactly where they touch
I
assets
object.
and what data they get.
Hold it. Your objection. What's your objection, Pat?
I object because he misses the most important first part, which is deciding what you want to track, not just going after it and tracking it.
Sustained. You got the
I
microphone.
object.
Hold on. Wait, Dwayne, what's your objection?
I was going to object to him.
Are you objecting to, I'm sorry, Pat or?
Pat, yes.
Okay, what's your objection to
Pat is
Pat?
in the upper left. My objection is that this is trying to be perfect, the enemy of good. I thought it was a perfectly good start, and you don't have to have an absolutely
Okay, sustained. You got the
notion.
microphone. Go.
So yeah, I just think that you start doing. We know by doing, and that is an acceptable way as long as you're working with you've got a decent end goal in mind. It's
And I object.
okay.
Okay, hold it. What's your objection, Pat?
So doing without any kind of process or plan is just running in circles. So if you
Okay,
don't know
so
where
say
you're
go.
traveling to.
Go. Pat, go.
Yeah. Okay. So, you have to have some kind of plan in place to go with. You're not looking for perfect. You're looking for a maturing, a living process that you can work through. But you got to have some kind of guideline. If you don't, then you're never going to get to your end goal.
There was an objection. He had an
I'm
objection.
sorry, who had the objection? Dwayne? I'm
did,
sorry, Dwayne,
yes.
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Go. What's
So
your objection?
I object because I think we're going in circles here, where anything that you do is a speculative effort, and where you end up is inevitably what you understand about asset management.
Okay, sustain.
is-
Go. Keep going.
Okay, that these are exploratory processes. So begin to do something. Use a good tool. Of course, you have an end goal, but I have never.
Oh,
Oh, you got it.
Dwayne wins. Congratulations. I think our What's Worse winners have won 3 weeks in a row. Is
Wow,
that correct,
very
Andrew?
nice.
How about that?
Andrew has our.
It's a good thing for us.
Yes, he's saying, by the way, you can pipe up on the microphone since your microphone does work. So congratulations, Dwayne, winning again for the I Object game. Congrats. We can sign you off here. Thank you very, very much. Good job, everybody. Nathan, you were far too polite, by the way.
I think that you got to extend this because I was about to object just based on his curtains, but I didn't even get to it.
Well, let me just tell you, you weren't here. I think it was last week. The objection cycle was out of control, or the last 2 weeks it was insane. I think it was like 10 times the number of objections you guys gave. But regardless, very, very good. We are going to play our next game in just a few minutes, in 6 minutes, where the audience is going to be involved. But let's go to our questions that have come in here. Here's a good question. And maybe you actually have numbers on this, Nathan. Phil Wolf asked this: what is the marginal effort or cost of adding one more asset to our inventory?
What is the cost of adding one more asset
Well, like,
to the inventory?
okay, so I know what my my inventory is before I
Right.
even talk to Axonius. All right, and obviously I don't know everything yet because I haven't talked to Axonius yet. What is now the cost of each incremental thing that I'm adding to it versus, well, I know 70% of what I got here.
So I think it really depends on what it is and what the purpose is. And let me give you a really good example, again, from like the cybersecurity perspective, not like the traditional ITAM perspective. So we had one customer that did this whole evaluation of an EDR solution, right? And they spent $2 million and who knows how much time deploying this EDR solution to all of their endpoints, or so they thought. The first thing they noticed when they used Axonius is that only 40% of the devices that they thought had that EDR agent installed actually did. So more than half of their devices didn't have the thing that they already paid for, right? So I guess the way that I look at it isn't like what each additional asset costs us, but instead the context of that device and whether it's protected, whether it's managed. To me, like that's what matters, because if it's just a device on its own, who knows? Like what Pat was saying, like if it's a device that has no data that matters, kind of who cares, even if it has a vulnerability. But if what we're saying is I spent all this money and all this time and effort to secure everything, and more than half of those things are actually not secured, and I'm still paying for it, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, said in my simple way, what Nathan said there is that marginality is a great concept in terms of a metric. But we're really at that point, we're looking at labor and tool cost, and we're trying to look at the margin for labor and tool cost to keep our asset inventory correct. And if you don't get it installed, then your labor and tool cost is technically zero, which will drive your margin down, but it's still not effective.
Yeah, it's that, and it's also if you're talking about in a regulated industry and you've got to do, you're doing audits for compliance and that sort of thing, then there's some real cost there.
So let me just mention a couple of things. We are 3 minutes away from playing our next game, and at that point, I'm also going to mention the two people who will be competing in the What's Worse face-off. All right, because I'll pick from the poll, but I'm going to pick essentially the people who were voted up the most. So get into the poll and vote in the next 3 minutes, please. Vote in, and there's a few really good ones in there. But there's 50 of them. I don't know if you'll be able to read all 50 of them. All right, and then if you haven't clicked the link at the bottom of the screen, please click that. I do want to ask before we go to our next game this question that Phil has, the second one. He has a second question here, which I think is great, and I'll start with you, Pat. How much of asset detection has reached beyond your campus border? So into the customer systems, into the partner systems, into workforce homes. So like, especially now, I mean, your assets are in everybody's house. So how extensive is this asset inventory?
Yeah. So if you're talking about physical location and connectivity, then obviously, we have 110,000-ish employees, give or take. And we went, fully remote, which is a big majority of that right day one from the pandemic. And we were, Zooming at 1 million Zoom participants a day kind of stuff. So yes, those assets are physically located in the home, but are they connected to the network? So from that point of view, no, because of always on VPN scenario, tools. So they're always connected to only my network. So I guess it depends on how you look at, what is that question?
Mm-hmm. How do you define it, Nathan?
How do you define, sorry, what?
Oh, let me reread Phil's question, because he talks about how much is asset detection extending beyond your campus borders into the customer and partner systems, into your workforce.
Got it. Yeah.
So, how do you guys define it?
So the real answer that's always unsatisfactory is it depends, right? So if it's something where someone's using a Chromebook that isn't touching any system whatsoever, that isn't working through either VPN or like something like an Okta or any of those things, like you can't, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's something that is logging in through a single sign-on mechanism or actually goes through something that is company controlled, then then that's the point of entry and that's the point of management. So it really depends. And yeah, that's exactly what you see, right? You see people like during the pandemic where you had companies where people just had to leave and didn't have anything. And so they went to Best Buy, grabbed something. And now a lot of companies had something that you sign in through, and therefore that's where you manage it. But then sometimes you just don't have that at all.
All right. I am ready. We're going to play our next game. And if I can get this darn thing to reset, hold on. There we go. That's it. All right. So we are going to play this new game of which you, the audience, you are involved. You're playing this game. It's a 60-second game, and this game is called Shoutburst. Here is how this is going to work. I've interviewed 3 CISOs, and these may be the same 3 CISOs I interview because I interviewed them a lot about stuff. I get their opinions on the best bad ideas. I should also mention that. Andy Ellis, Mike Johnson, and Dan Walsh, all 3 of them. I asked them what are some of the most unusual things they've discovered on their platform when they did an asset inventory. Now, I will tell you, I have a list of 18 items here. You all in the audience are going to type in as many of these as you can possibly think of, okay? Just type them into the chat room. Andrew's going to keep count to see how many you actually get on the list. I will tell you, some of them are very mundane. You're going to get them. Don't start typing now because we won't count them. Now, you got to wait till the clock starts. Some of them will be mundane. You'll get them pretty easily. Some of them are really weird and esoteric, and you may never get them. What's going to happen when you're typing them in, both Pat and Nathan are going to shout out as many of them as you can physically shout out. Whoever gets the most number right out of the 18 wins. Does everyone understand what's going on?
Yeah, we're shouting our own out, though, not reading the chat. Yeah.
Don't read the chat.
Are we alternating or just talking over each other?
Just do it as much as you can. You got 60 seconds to do it. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Chat room, are you ready? On your mark, get set, go.
Smart
a Raspberry
trays.
Pi, internet connected fish tank, a smart power plug,
Smart baby monitors,
a connected fish tank, a nuclear reactor,
mattress cover, smart
an
mattress
ATM running
easy ones
XP,
smart coffee makers,
a Bitcoin mining server farm.
I'm telling you, start much easier than that.
Oh man,
a laptop.
There you go.
All right. A desktop, a cloud instance, a smartwatch.
Yeah, smart sensor, location sensor.
Okay.
A badging systems.
A phone. Headphones.
Network access points.
Okay.
A SparkBook. A Zune.
Security cameras. Specifically doghouse security cameras, by the way.
Okay.
Yep. A pet feeder.
Smart
we're
washing
out
machine.
of time.
Okay.
All right. Now I'm gonna apologize if you may have said something and not. Oh my God! Look at how many came in.
Wow, there's a lot in here.
Andrew, okay, well,
Ooh, light bulbs
you
are a good
stop
one, yeah.
on all of these. You're all stopped. The time's up. Andrew, how
take
many did
these
we
together and make a list of them and publish it?
Was it? Jesus,
Yes.
this is incredible. Margarita machine.
Ooh, vending machine's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good one too. All right, Andrew, can you come on and tell us how many there were, or did you type it in the back channel? Counting too. He's still counting. All right, I'm going to go through them and tell you what we got here. The total 18. Safes and their combinations.
Yeah.
That was one of them.
That's a good one.
Now, some of these were more in the data area, so a few of these are esoteric. The notebook of passwords for the Network Operations Center.
Wow.
The CEO's assistance list of CEO accounts. Okay, that was now, I don't know if you said this. You may have said this. Did anyone say air quality monitors? I didn't hear that. No. Light switches. Did I hear? I didn't hear light switches.
So no, someone said that in the chat. That was a good one.
Someone said, okay, someone got lobby kiosks. No. Mm-mm. Garage transponders, I did not hear, but I did hear employee badges from you, Pat. So that's one for you.
Yep.
Now this was from Andy. Social media passwords for the corporate mascot, which was funny.
No way anyone gets that ever.
One of you may have said this. I don't know if I heard of virtual machines. Did anyone say virtual machines? No, you didn't say.
No. Yeah.
I definitely did hear IoT devices.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned IoT, I also have IoT test devices.
Yeah.
I did hear cloud and applications is kind of the same thing. I'm going to give you one for cloud and applications too. Camera servers. Did anyone mention camera servers?
No,
didn't hear
not
that.
specifically.
I did hear laptops.
Cameras.
I did hear phones. I have, for the two of you, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 for you. Andrew, how many did they get?
We've got 5 on our end.
Only 5 on your
Only
end.
5.
Oh my God! Congratulations, the winners. Hold on, I'm going to give you the appropriate. Hold on, do I have that here? Hold on. Here we go.
Nice.
We've got a
That
winner.
was for you too. All right, congratulations for that. All right. Thank you very much. The audience blew up on that one. Holy moly. Garage door. They got garage door opener. Did you get that one? The garage transponders? Did that count in the 5, Andrew? Andrew? Yes? No?
Hey, we got buffer. We're good. We got buffer.
Okay, well, okay. We're going to go back to the questions here, and at 40 minutes past there. Oh, I have to pick the 2. Let me find out the 2 worst ideas here. All right, here are the 2 worst ideas that were voted up, and we want the people who said these to speak up because I'm going to bring them on. And one of them, hands down, ran away with it. Make sure to plug in every USB drive you find so you can track it as an asset. Who said that? That's a good one. That's a good, bad idea. Please speak up for that. And then the second one was use a Roomba map to show all the assets it found. Now, if I can't find those 2 people, I will go to others as well. So speak up to those 2. So make sure to plug in every USB drive you find so you can track it as an asset and use a Roomba to map. So USB was Kevin's, all right? And who had the Roomba one? Please speak up for that as well. All right, because we're going to bring you in about 5 minutes. All right, let's go back to our questions here. Oh, and Ted. All right, Kevin and Ted, you're coming on in just about 5 minutes. So be ready. Have your cameras and your microphones ready. All right. And you're going to be fighting why yours is the worst. This comes from Oz Caglian. Caglian? Did I pronounce your name right? Oz? In addition to keeping the most updated asset inventory, is there any feature in Axonius to filter by newly discovered or decommissioned assets? Oh, good question. Obviously a question for you, Nathan. You got an answer for that?
Good question. Yeah. So you can filter it or you can tag. So if you, for instance, wanted to tag something as decommissioned and then have your queries filter out anything with that tag, you can do it that way. So you can do it both ways, both on the proactive side on how you search for things, but also on an ongoing basis by tagging.
All right. All right. Next question here. This comes from, I think it's Sander Sliderink. I believe I'm pronouncing it right. If you have a VPN from all work from home employees, shouldn't asset management include work from home modems, WAPs, ZBoxes, PlayStations, etc.? Does that happen actually with Axonius? Yes. No?
So can you do anything with those? Right. So
or at least can you? I'm assuming see them at least.
Well, so you can only see those things that are connected to a source, right? So if you can get to a data source that knows about them, sure. But I think for something like that, if it's someone's home router, what are you going to do with that, right? If it's anything that's in someone's home, I mean, you could probably discover it some way, but you're not going to do anything about it anyway. And so for us, like we wouldn't think about that because you want to find those things that you can do something about.
And we have the same problem, David, when we start talking about data assets and you start talking about BYOD. You get into all kinds of mired discussions surrounding, first go-to is going to be, well, just put MDM on it. Well, yeah, but how many people are going to actually let you do that to their phone? And then if you say, well, then you can't get your work email on your phone, then the next answer is, well, then fine, I work from 8 to 5 on my laptop and then I walk away. So that's part of the same messy discussion when you talk about data assets.
Okay. All right. I think we can bring on, this is a good time. Let's bring on our 2 guests. That is going to be Kevin Hackinson and Ted Bardusha. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name, Ted, correctly. Bring on Kevin and Ted, and we will have them battle out. The 2 of you will be the judges here for this. Again, let me remind everybody to click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next Friday's video chat. We want you there. Kevin, a repeat champion, coming back again. Good to see you. Kevin, by the way, we are I think it was yours or Dutch's request to have a leaderboard on the bad ideas because I think you and Dutch are pretty darn close. So we're going to go, We're going to, by the way, start counting bad ideas, and this is going to be a bummer for Dutch because I think he won like 3 weeks in a row when we first started it. But we're only counting bad ideas since we started making the memes, which I don't know if we started that at the very beginning or not. I can't remember. But
makes me wonder if that's career beneficial or not to be on the leaderboard of bad ideas.
Bad idea. That's a very good point, Pat. Hold it. Let me ask. Oh yeah,
Great, I'm sideways.
Ted, what the hell happened there?
That's fun. Yeah.
By the way, Ted, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yeah, that was absolutely right. You're very good.
Oh, good. All right, Ted, we're just going to accept you sideways.
Put your laptop on its side.
Yeah, or your camera.
Actually, I can.
You know.
Oh,
what? Now you're
the
other
other way around.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So, Kevin, please repeat what your bad idea was, so everyone knows what it was. It was a darn good one about USB drives.
Yeah, make sure you plug in every USB drive you find so you can track it as an asset.
All right, and you just know what's on it, which I thought was a good idea. Good bad idea. And Ted, what was your bad idea?
Bad idea was using a Roomba map to tell you what's around.
All right. Okay. Now, the two of you actually have to argue with each other as to why yours is the worst. So, Kevin, explain to Ted why your bad idea is far worse than his.
So my bad idea is far worse because even though like a Roomba's going to find stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cause more problems. It's going to, I'm going to insert ransomware on the system. I'm going to employees are going to now break the rule that says don't plug in USB drives. So you're going to fail audits. So now not only did I not approve a problem, I actually made a couple worse problems.
That is a very good point. All right, Ted, why is your bad idea far worse than
Well, mine's a bad idea because not everything it finds is relevant in anything. It'll find a sofa. It'll find a table. It'll find a dog lying on the carpet. I mean, it is going to be so full of noise, you won't know what might actually be an asset you had to worry about. It's about a lot of things that don't matter.
All right.
But I would argue that that CISO list tracked a bunch of stuff I wouldn't have thought of, like safes, and Roomba would find that. So yours is actually a pretty good idea because it's going to find stuff that we didn't even put in the chat.
That's true, but not all USB drives are bad either. You will find ones that have interesting things, and you'll find ones that will blow up your computers. So it may cause more damage, but on the other hand, I think not finding a bunch of things that don't matter is a good waste of time too.
All right, let me pause you there. All right, I'm throwing this to both Pat and Nathan. Nathan, which idea truly is the worst?
Okay, so the reason I think this idea is the worst is because I like the idea of someone saying, but we were trying to inventory everything, so of course I plugged in the USB drive. So to me, someone could logically defend doing it, even though it's a terrible idea. I think the Roomba's a good one because it's going to miss a lot of stuff, so it's a bad idea. But hearing someone say, I have all of the logic to support me doing it, it makes me smile on the inside. I love it.
Okay, so a vote for Kevin. Pat, how do you feel?
Yes, as much as I love the Roomba idea and everything, and just it's just so way out there, so the thought process boggles the mind. The thing that grabbed my vote on the first idea is it wasn't just plug in the USBs that the company owns; it's plug in every USB we find. So, you're going to have people walking in off the streets with, hey, I found this one that says payroll information from wherever. It is the quintessential don't do that thing.
It's in the couch in the waiting room. Oh, yeah.
Oh, by the way, I didn't realize, Ted, are you blazing a CISO series jacket yourself?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, look at that. Both of them have their CISO series jacket on. Good job, both in general. All right. Well, Kevin wins this one. By the way, I agree, Ted. Yours idea is horrible, and I like the fact that it would just 90% noise. But also, Kevin made a good point. It would actually find one random thing like the safe. It would do that. So kudos. All right. Congrats to both of you. Thank you very much. Excellent job. But by the way, we will still later, I will go through all the bad ideas and determine the truly Worst bad idea. Who wins the jacket? All right.
And Dave, I apologize. I didn't sport my jacket because it's too warm in here right now. So
that's quite all right. I'll let it slide this time. All right. We don't have any questions coming in, so I'm going to go to my own questions. I got plenty of those. But please feel free to throw in the questions because we only have about 60 minutes left. Oh, Andrew, did you put up the poll for the 10% better? Put up the 10% better poll. Oh, it's up right now, it looks like. Yes, 10% better. Please vote on the 10% better ideas here. Now we've gone through all of your horrible ideas. Let's find out what good ideas you have. So please vote on those, and we will reference those in just a few minutes. All right, to my questions right now. All right. This is a question I should have asked earlier. My apologies. But where do we often miss when looking for assets? I'll start with you, Pat. Where do we just not look?
I think it's in our partner environments. We miss when we put stuff out to our clients to try and help them with something, and we maybe throw a device out there or throw a mini network out there or IoT, management system or something like that, and then it never filters its way back through procurement to security or asset management or whomever has that responsibility, and it gets lost in the shuffle.
Nathan, agree or disagree that that's the toughest thing right there?
This is one of them. I mean, this is a target-rich environment. I will also.
Let me ask you: Do you have a top 3 list of the toughest things to find?
Let's see here. So, one thing I will say, I don't know if it's top 3, but one thing that people really don't talk about a lot is those like cloud instances that were never shut down, right? Something that maybe when it was spawned, it had like the gold image. It was like a cloud-based VM and it was totally fine. And then no one ever thought to look back at it and shut it down. That's something we hear about a lot. So yeah, I mean, I think cloud-based stuff in general, it's harder to find. It's got like a dynamic IP range and no one ever thinks to shut them down. Unless you have like some kind of automated scripts to do it. So that's something we see an awful lot where you've got something that you spun up and then just moved on to something else and never thought to look back.
Yeah.
That's a common problem we have. So I'm going to take a look at some of these 10% better ideas here. One is, here we go. This got voted up 7 times. Get more aggressive about end of life for assets. And literally just what you were referring to.
Yeah, there you go.
Reduce liability of assets that shouldn't be on the network any longer. Pat, do you have a good and by the way, we did a whole show about physical end of life assets, about destroying hard drives and things like that. That just point that out. That alone reduces risk dramatically.
Yeah, and absolutely applies to data. So end of life data is the bane of existence because we went through this period where storage is cheap. Just store it, buy it, store it. No big deal. So we've got, I came from a prior company where there were 60 petabytes of data. And now, and no good retention program. Everybody writes a retention policy. Few people actually enforce the retention policy to get anything done. And so you end up with huge volumes of stale data, and that's a real big risk. And
copies of it, right?
Yes,
you got backups of backups of backups. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody dedupes.
Right.
Let me go to some of the questions that have come in here. And I hadn't even heard this term, but I can kind of guess what it is. Anyone doing work on asset chaining? Asset chaining? Do you know what this is, either of you?
No,
no idea. Someone explain what asset chaining. What am I saying? Chris, you're the one who posted it. You explain what asset chaining is. Chris Foulon asked this question: how do you find all the random SaaS applications and like going to the someone didn't go through procurement but they just loaded up a SaaS solution? How do you find those?
Yeah, there's a couple of
Nathan, you start. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do that. None of them are perfect, but nothing's perfect anyway. But yeah, there's a few ways that you can do that. You can do it through looking at things like network traffic. You can understand looking at logs. None of those are perfect, but there are ways to do it through the sanction stuff through IAM. There's easy ways to do it for the sanction stuff, but for the like the rogue stuff, it isn't clean, it isn't easy, but you have to do some inspection to find it. There are some ways to do that are a little bit better than just trying to do like SaaS fingerprinting. But yeah, it's a huge problem that's getting worse and worse all the time. So you can do it for those things that are sanctioned, but finding those things like again, like I was saying before, the idea of if I'm here at home on my home network and I visit, some SaaS solution and I throw in my credit card, like how do you find that unless it finds its way through something that is corporate sanctioned?
Pat, how are you dealing with this problem?
Well, and do you really care if that credit card gets out if it's not a corporate credit card necessarily?
No, I mean, like I'm saying, I can buy that and use it outside of anybody from the company I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then tier it down. I mean, there's the ones that go through procurement. God willing, you know what those are. Then there are the ones that I'm using for the company data, but I bought on my credit card. And so I'm assuming the first tier is reasonably easy to figure out. The second tier is not.
And it's not, I propose two administrative controls that it's very hard to put anything beyond it besides the administrative controls. But the policy for procurement first should say something along the lines of all technology and services procurement must have a review through security office. That's kind of first line defense for the procurement process. Then the other side is you go to the accounts payable policy, the reimbursement policy, business reimbursement, and you say no technology or service expenditure will be reimbursed unless it's been approved by the leader and has been reviewed by security office.
By the way, I believe this is the explanation of asset chaining here. Chris Patterson explains a building that holds the hardware is an asset. The software running on the hardware is an asset. The open source used in the software is an asset. So is anything like that happening? So you understand where sort of the connection of all these assets?
Yeah, now you're talking about like dependency mapping or service mapping to assets. Correct. Yeah. And actually different products have facility like that. I'm not familiar with Exonius enough to know, but if you even look at something like an ITSM, like a ServiceNow, they have a service mapping process in there. And depending on how robust you make your CMDB, if you say CMDB will include everything as a configuration item, then you can service map everything that's in the CMDB to that level.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I think so. That's one of the things that we connect to is like CMDB, but also things like even what you're getting from Active Directory, right? You'll get the group. You'll probably get like the geo. So I can say like, this building and this geo and this group and this whatever, and then you can also look at to the level of granularity of like a CMDB to get that too.
And David, I think what we miss a lot of times when we start doing this kind of collecting the assets together is we also fail to assess the value of knowing about that asset, either in risk reduction or in just pure value because it's durable. If you are collecting assets for the sake of being able to say something exists, then you're probably overburdening your system and you've got a lot of noise.
All right, we're going to get to wrapping up the show. I want everybody, if you have not clicked the link at the bottom to register for next week's Friday video chat, please do that now because that is going to change in about 1 minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up our conversation right now just with showing a few more slides, and then I'm going to ask for the two of you your last thoughts on this topic of what the rest of us should be thinking about. So please... register for next Friday's video chat, Hacking Productivity, an hour of critical thinking about how security can improve business operations. Let me also let you know that I am going to send an email out because it's very important for me to try to get everyone who's here and who registered for this event to register for next week's event. So you're going to get an email from me reminding you to register for next Friday's event if you have not clicked that link before. Remember, if you register early, you're put in a raffle to win an awesome CISO Series jacket. All right. Exonius. Thank you so much for sponsoring this very video chat and being an awesome sponsor with the CISO series. And again, we are taking 100% credit for your success. Starting in about 90 minutes from now, that's 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, we will be doing Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. And our guest is Davi Ottenheimer, who's a VP of Trust and Digital Ethics over at Interrupt. If you have never heard Davi Ottenheimer speak, he is very entertaining and very controversial, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of great opinions about the week's news. It's only 20 minutes, and it's on LinkedIn on CISO Series channel on the CISO Series on LinkedIn. Excuse me. Stick around for our meetup. So change the link, Andrew, to the link at the bottom to our meetup link. You can, once that changes over, although you can click on it now if you haven't joined for the productivity. But Andrew will change that link. Now it's changed. That is our link for our meetup. If you've never joined our meetup, please join it. It is a lot of fun. We just do it for about a half hour right after this video chat, and it's a chance to converse with your fellow cybersecurity professionals, and you'll see you'll be a floating bubble. You just click other bubbles, join conversations, leave conversations, rejoin, come back and forth, make it a 2-person, 3, 9-person, and you can also lock a conversation if you want to stay in private. That's totally cool as well. Tell your friends to join us. We do it every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're not going to do it after Thanksgiving, so that'll be one time. We won't do it around Christmas. We'll do after Thanksgiving. We'll have 3 more shows, and then that's it for 2021. If you want to sponsor a video chat, just email me at david@cisoseries.com. We got stuff in 2022. Happy to have you a part of it. All right. Let us now wrap this show up. We have just about 4 minutes left. I will start with you, Nathan. Your final thoughts about asset management, what others should be thinking about, and please make a pitch for Axonius as well.
Yeah, so thanks. This was a lot of fun, as always. If you're really trying to solve this and you are looking for something that can help you out and automate a lot of this manual stuff, definitely check out Axonius. We have free 30-day trials right on the site, so you can sign up there. Definitely give us a look, and I'm always happy to discuss this stuff, not just slinging product, but you can tell this is fun stuff for me. Although, like we said earlier, asset management is the sexiest thing in the world. I still have a lot of fun with it.
There you go. But it's nice to be the first thing people have to consider when building their security program, even if it is not so sexy. All right, Pat, your final thoughts on this topic and your advice. And by the way, are you hiring over at CBRE?
Yes, I actually posted last week on my team. I'm looking for a senior cyber risk analyst to help us with doing some data risk scanning to support programs like SHREMS and GDPR and stuff like that. So,
well, we have a lot of very intelligent people in the chat room. And Pat, you'll be in the meetup immediately after this, yes?
Yes.
All right. So if you think you would like to do something like that, please join us. I'm sorry. Continue on with your final thoughts on here.
Yeah. So it may be the first thing that we're supposed to think of in terms of asset management. But if you don't, then rest assured that it will be the last thing you think of in your position, because it's going to come bite you eventually. But yeah, have a process. I agree with Dwayne 100%, who said earlier, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. And absolutely. But have a process, have a plan. Do the classification up front, identify what you're trying to track so you don't get caught up in noise. Look at value against risk and what good is it to collect the asset information. And then, to Dwayne's point before, just do something, work at it. And it's a living, breathing thing that is never ending.
So even though you objected with Dwayne, you agree with him?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I want to thank my guest, Pat Benoit. By the way, I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, right?
Yes, sir.
Pat Benoit and Nathan Burke over at Axonius, Pat with CBRE. Thank you, everybody, for doing this. Let me know what you think of the new games that we did. We're trying to cycle a lot of new games. We're testing a lot of things out. Sometimes, things need to be tweaked a little bit here and there, and we kind of work that out. But definitely want to know your thoughts about that as well. Please join us next Friday. And if you haven't done it right now, go ahead and click that link at the very bottom of the screen and join us for the meetup, which we're going to do right this very moment. So go ahead and click on that, and I'll see you over there.
Thanks, David.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, David.
Take us out, Andy.